Real talk, raw truth, raging hearts. Welcome to From the Minds of Raging Brats. Like, share, and subscribe.
Hi, welcome to From the Minds of Raging Brats. I'm Heather.
And I'm Ashley.
Today we're going to be tackling something that, we have started to talk about somewhat with our women's healthcare series that we did, but it's going to be a little bit more serious, something raw, something that every single person needs to hear. We're pulling back the curtain on the history of women's healthcare from the barbaric beginnings to the modern practices that still carry the same abuse, just rebranded. We're going to talk about sterilizations, forced procedures, dismissed pain, racial injustice, and the systems that have always treated our bodies as problems to be solved or controlled. So let's dive into this uncomfortable truth because silence has never saved us.
Yes.
So, you are the one that wanted this topic to be brought specifically to its own episode. So I'm gonna let you start with your own research and your own perspective, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So today's episode, we are going to be talking about medical experimentation, specifically with women. And like Heather said, this is something that's happened for a very long time, and it is still continuing to happen. They've just gotten better at hiding it, personally. And honestly, the first thing I want to say in this series is fuck J. Marion Sims. He is somebody that is called the godfather of modern gynecology, and the things that man has done, not just to women, but to the society, is sickening. He is most well known for when he developed the speculum. First off, any woman knows that's not a comfortable tool to be used nowadays. But back then, he would take enslaved young women, and without anesthesia, without any type of pain relief or comfort, he would put these into women unlubricated. And he also said that he chose the enslaved not just because they were cheap and easy to use, but because he believed black women and any woman of any color did not feel pain the same way. And this is something that has continued to happen through centuries. Like, this isn't new. Like, this has been happening prior to the medieval ages. Like, one of the things I had told Heather that interested me in this subject was, most people don't know why chainsaws were invented. And they were actually invented to help in childbirth. They cut open the bones of the pelvis and remove the child because the woman's life wasn't as important as that child's. And that's exactly the right reaction, Heather. Like, it is absolutely craziest. And there was also a young woman that Mr. Marion Sims experimented on. She had to go through over 30 surgeries on her genitalia and uterus with no pain meds, no aftercare.
That would be Anarcha.
Mm-hmm.
Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy were his three main experiment patients that were left out of history, which, it's kind of funny that he is dubbed the father of gynecology and mentioned in all these textbooks and all this stuff through history. But the women that actually made those experiments valid, that actually provided the data,
that suffered with their body.
Are almost wiped from history.
Yeah.
I recommend people look up Medical Bondage by Deirdre Cooper Owens. It is the story about Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy.
And it's a story that needs to be
more
told.
informed.
And it's very important, like you said, the women that had to sacrifice their bodies, their mental health, their children's health are almost always forgotten in these stories. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted to talk about this so much, is because the medical community has been gaslighting women for as long as they have figured out how.
Well, and we just talked about Dr. Sims and the father of gynecology, but we can go back even further than that with, historic horrors like the diagnosis of hysteria in the 1800s to the early 1900s. Nearly any emotion, illness, or disagreement from a woman could get her labeled with hysteria. That term comes from the Greek word hystera, meaning uterus. Basically, they thought our wombs were the problem.
Yeah.
The cures were horrifying. Institutionalization, genital massage, aka masturbation, bed rest that cause actual mental breakdowns, in some cases surgical removal of the uterus, what we now know as the hysterectomy.
Yeah.
They stopped calling it hysteria, but they still act like we're making it up.
Exactly.
And then you get into the rest cure. The rest cure. This is where the Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman comes in. It's a short story written in 1892 about a woman suffering postpartum depression who is prescribed the rest cure, which is no reading, no writing, no leaving your bed, no social interactions, nothing. You are totally isolated until deemed mentally sane, which is maddening. She slowly descends into madness, hallucinating a woman trapped inside her wallpaper. That woman, it's her.
Yeah.
The story is a chilling metaphor for how women were silenced, invalidated, and psychologically destroyed from the very people claiming to care for them.
Yeah.
Like, it started way before this doctor. Women have been being appropriated, used, abused, and discarded since the beginning of time.
Yeah. And a part of that little rest therapy, or when they would put you on bed rest that they don't talk about a lot, is if that woman said no, or she tried to get up, or she tried to interact with, her children, then they would chain her to said bed and then make all the lights in the room go out and lock her in there.
Or they would institutionalize her at that point and let somebody else lock her in a room.
And let's just get into that a little bit. So, women, like you said, we could be put in a mental institution for not having a good day. And then, women were something like 15% more likely to have an ice pick lobotomy done to them to make them appropriate. One of our president's little sisters had that happen to her, and the reason she was put into the mental institution is because she wasn't acting womanly enough. Which, when they broke it down, meant she wasn't smiling on cue and agreeing with everything that her brother said. And she came back a vegetable.
Fuck that. Moving forward into the next area is eugenics and forced sterilization. In the 20th century, the U.S. carried out widespread forced sterilizations, especially on Black, Indigenous, Latina, disabled, and incarcerated women. They used the excuse of eugenics to protect society from women they deemed unfit to reproduce. Who are you to tell somebody they don't deserve to have a child unless that they have abused previous children, murdered a child, etc.?
Exactly. And okay, so that's horrible that happened, but the even worse thing is half the time they weren't telling these women what were going on. They weren't telling, and they're like, oh, it's just it's routine care. It has to be done. Or they would lie outright about what was wrong with them to be able to do whatever they saw fit with that woman's body.
Yep. In California, tens of thousands of women were sterilized without their knowledge. Some didn't even find out until years later when they couldn't get pregnant. They called it care. it was torture. They called it medicine, it was erasure. And those that are unsure, look up Killing the Black Body by Dorothy Roberts, LA Times Investigative Archives. Killing the Black Body is a groundbreaking book that explores how American laws and medical systems have long tried to control Black women's bodies, from welfare restrictions to criminalizing pregnancy. Dorothy Roberts shows that reproductive justice must include the right to have children and to raise them safely and freely. We say never again, but when it's Black and brown bodies or poor bodies, it comes quietly and with paperwork. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And honestly, eugenics had so much to do with a lot of modern day atrocities that have happened to women. Like, so I talked about the chainsaw earlier. That was way before that. But during eugenics times, we had something called, I want to say this right, the pelvometer. A pelvometer would be inserted into a woman to measure the diameter of her uterus and her pelvis to decide if she was fit enough to have a child. And almost every single woman they did this to was either poor or indigenous specifically. And this was excruciatingly painful for them. It literally tore their insides. All just so some natives and some poor people wouldn't have no more kids. Because a man said so.
I will never understand why so often in so many societies women are thought of as secondhand citizens. We literally can juggle cooking, raising children, managing a calendar, managing our finances, paying bills, cooking, cleaning, and yet men, given that same task responsibility, can't even do half of that at one time.
No, they have to
And
delegate
somehow we are the second class citizens. And that is not me discrediting men, because let me say clearly that as much as I'm a feminist, I also believe in masculinity. I believe it's sexy as fuck, not toxic masculinity, because there is that out there, but masculinity in its natural form is sexy as hell. And I love a masculine man in my life, but I know that no matter how amazing of a man I were to ever find, they're never going to be able to handle all the things that I have to handle as a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. Like, I think it's honestly a lot of conditioning. A lot of people have been so rigid in the ways they think that a family or a man and woman should work that it's created a lot of disparities and between the two, even though they're equally great for much, much different reasons. But I also think it's a form of control. I get to decide whether you have a baby. I get to decide people's perception of you.
Yeah, I'm not in that that lower ego-centered mindset anymore, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But
It doesn't make sense to
I
me.
guess
It's what I see.
yeah, no, I know. And continuing in that vein, moving on to suffragettes and the prison system. Iron-Jawed Angels, What Really Happened. That movie, if you didn't see it, you should, because it was a real-life depiction of what happened to women who were peacefully protesting, not making any problems for anybody, peacefully protesting in front of the White House. That was how they silenced them. In 1917, women protesting for the right to vote were arrested and thrown into prison. When they went on hunger strikes, they were tied down and force-fed through tubes shoved into their noses and throats. The most well-known were Alice Paul and Lucy Burns. The government called it medical treatment. We call it what it was, torture. And when you watch that movie, you will see it was no hospital level nutrition. They didn't give them an IV and give their body the vitamins and nutrients to sustain them and keep them alive. No, they took raw eggs and shit and force fed them down tubes to brutalize them, not because they wanted to keep them alive or because they cared about their hunger strike. They also threatened to declare women like Alice Paul insane and institutionalize them indefinitely. This wasn't medicine, it was political control. They weren't just political prisoners, they were medicalized and pathologized to discredit their cause.
Yeah. They are imprisoned. And honestly, especially for that time, you disappear in a mental hospital for long enough, you're nothing but another fucking experiment.
Yep. Those were the people they started lobotomizing before they decided it was a healthy medical treatment. Like, those kind of things were founded in places like that. Yep. It's fucking insane.
It is.
Then we move on, and guess what? Modern medicine, same misogyny.
Okay, like, I'm just gonna say, like, this camera might not pick it up, but I got a nifty little thing of modern medicine that a man designed in my arm. That thing is so dangerous, especially the first IUDs that were put out. Like, they had 10 times more birth control hormone than it needed. It causes serious health problems. It caused serious birth defects. Like, and they just kept pumping it out like, we know what's best for you, honey. Don't you dare question us. Stick the little baby non-more maker thing in your arm and shut up.
Hey, I had 3 of them in my arm before one disappeared and they had to go dig it out and find it, and I decided no more. But they gave it to me not for birth control. It was for perimenopause symptoms to keep my hot flashes and stuff under control. And while I won't lie, it did do that beautifully. Yeah. The first 6 months, they tell you your first 6 months are going to be the most miserable of your life, and they aren't lying. And it's not just miserable for you. It's for every single person in your life, because you're also a raging cunt.
Oh.
For no reason.
Oh, and that's like, okay, so that's the implant, but any of y'all remember Depo?
Yep. Been there, done that too.
I was like, do y'all? Like, I know Heather, you do, but does our audience know that Depo was removed? People aren't allowed to get Depo no more. Because it messed with our brain chemistry so badly that it drove some people permanently out their fucking rocker. And not to mention the poor children that somehow were birthed even while these women were on Depo and the side effects that they had. That's appalling.
Well, and they told you when you got Depo that you had to get the shot every 3 months. But they would tell you when you get the shot that once you start taking the shot, it could be 6 months to 10 years before your fertility returns.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, most doctors will market it as, like, just an easy birth control. When you want to have babies, you just stop taking the shot. 3-4 months later, you could be fertile again. It almost never works. And I was. Like, you're one of the few, but most women struggled. Or
no, I know. I knew I was the odd case out because my doctors were like, what do you mean you're pregnant already? I'm like, well, you gave me the results, so...
What do you mean? What do you mean? Did you make a
and even that, for the doctors in that moment to be, like, surprised by the information that they gave us.
Right? Like, sir? Guess who's more surprised right now?
But modern day comes with pain dismissal and medical gaslighting. Women are still more likely to be told their pain is in their head, especially Black women. They are told it's anxiety, it's hormones, it's stress. Conditions like PMDD, fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's, and endometriosis often take years. And I mean fucking years, because I'm in that category. 20 fucking years of being told it was all in my head before they went, oops, that's Hashimoto's and fibromyalgia. Man,
sorry.
It sucks. Because providers still don't take us seriously. Just because they put a pink label on the pill bottle doesn't mean they're not still experimenting on us. Women aren't broken. The system that pretends to treat us is.
Yeah.
Then we roll into the next gaslighting, birth control and the double standard. The side effects of birth control have been ignored for decades. Depression, blood clots, libido loss. And yet, when men experienced mild side effects in male birth control trials, the studies were halted, stopped, thrown in the trash.
Oh yeah, don't hurt the baby fucking testicle bastards. No.
Men weren't even having side effects close to what women have had for decades with birth control. They were having mild, do you hear me? Mild side effects. Mild side effects. You were minorly inconvenienced and you threw it out the window to let women continue to die from it?
Well, I think
What
that
the
also
hell?
goes back to like society's thing. We have been taught, or at least told as women, that is your responsibility. You take the pills, you carry the condoms, you say no to like unsafe sex so you don't have a baby. We never looked at the men and was like, hey, how about, you carry some condoms too and stop your little swimmers from making it to the goal line.
Yeah.
Just because you have some acne and some back pain, motherfucker. You are almost making another person spit a watermelon out of their cooter. What do you think is worse?
The uterus has always been treated like a source of evil, from wandering wombs to hysterectomies prescribed for emotions. What the fuck? And you can find these sources on the CDC, the NIH, the WHO, studies on reproductive health. They're all covered. Then there's unnecessary inductions and C-sections. Many women are pressured into C-sections or inductions not because it's medically necessary, but because it's convenient for her provider or profitable for the hospital. Like, what even is that, people? But then women like myself that have had multiple issues with cancer and don't want to keep and don't have any more kids, they're sterilized, whatever, we can't get them to just take us in and remove the uterus that's bringing the cancer cells into the body so we can move on and live life happy, feliz, with no issues. No, that's not appropriate because it wasn't medically necessary. But when your doctor didn't want to miss his golf tee time, all of a sudden it was medically necessary.
Yep. It's crazy. And
it makes me irate.
Yep. Yeah. Because it seems like time and time again, it doesn't matter what symptoms we have or what's going on. Like, if it's never happened to them, it can't happen to anyone. I feel like it's so much of their mentality when it comes to women's health.
Well, and honestly, this episode is going to cover a lot of different things because I've still got some more to go.
Yep.
But the main thing that I hope people are seeing, the main theme through this, is how women are not valued as sovereign entities, as their own individual person.
No. And we haven't been for a long time. We are things to experiment on. We are the things to have children. We are the things to clean a house. We are the things to fuck. But are we people? Do we what our opinions matter? Very few.
And here is just another glaring representation of that. ICE detainees and present-day atrocities. In 2020, a whistleblower nurse named Dawn Wooten exposed horrific abuse at the Irwin County Detention Center in Georgia. Women in ICE custody were sterilized without informed consent, operated on without anesthesia, given unnecessary hysterectomies, denied translators during life-changing procedures. Some women came in for mild pain or period concerns and left unable to ever have children again. Others were raped or sexually assaulted under the guise of medical exams. Many still don't know what procedures were done to them. These women weren't forgotten. They were disappeared. Their ability to tell their story was surgically removed. ICE didn't just detain women, they dismantled their dignity, and most of us barely blinked. And you can follow the sources: Dawn Wooten Whistleblower Report, New York Times, The Cut, NPR, Rewire News Group. They've all posted about it. the reality of this is that it isn't just women in ICE custody. Like, for years, we have the red hand for Native American women going missing. That is because it is not just women being like kidnapped for trafficking. It is women that are being kidnapped to be experimented on, to be government research rabbits. Like, you think that it's just the bad guys that nobody sees, but it's not. It's your everyday people that you shake hands with on a day-to-day basis that are still disappearing these people, that are taking these women and torturing them medically for their own fucking jollies. Yes, sometimes they, in their process of their bullshit experimentation for their own shits and giggles, they stumble across a medical miracle or whatever, and then it advances medical science. But let's not get it twisted that this is happening under the guise of fucking serial killers using their positions to cover their tracks.
Yes. And I was actually just about to bring in the Indigenous factor. Like, because if there is one group of people, it is African American and Indigenous people that understand this in this country probably better than most. So when we were starting to gather up the Indians and send them to their reservations, Native Americans already knew you put your women in the center when you move, because there are people that are going to grab them, and it's not just going to be for forced sexual congress. It is going to be because they believe that they can't hurt the same way that other people. I want to cut them, I want to poke them, I want to prod them, I want to put them over a fire and see if they scream louder than the white woman we did it to last week. And there was nothing they could do, and that's why the reservations have such strong laws now. But it's still happening.
It's still happening every day. And not just in this country. Like, what's even gets to me more, like, I have lots of friends in Canada where there's a lot larger population of Indigenous people than even here in the US anymore. And every fucking day their aunts, sisters, cousins are going missing, and they're just, and it's like one day you're talking to this person and the next day nobody's heard from them, and you're like, what do you mean? What do you mean they went to the grocery store and never came home? This is 2025. What do you mean? There's surveillance everywhere. What do you mean they're gone?
And honestly, like, if you really talk to some of these natives, it's not even always like they went to the grocery store and someone never heard from them again. They went to sleep that night in their house. And somehow, even though they have Ring doorbells, even though they have cameras, everything, they're just fucking gone? No.
Well, in our country, let's be real, the reason that we have less Indigenous people left than Canada does is our own government. Because back in the 1800s and the early 1900s, we were gathering Native American children, stealing them from their parents to go to our schools. And then, like, if the nuns or the priests decided they wanted to touch that little kid and that little kid defended itself, they were put to death and buried in behind the church. Like, that was an evil child and we couldn't exorcise its demons, so we put it down. Bitch, what?
So a lot of my family was raised on a res. My great-grandmother, I believe, she was on a res that had a Catholic school. And they separated the boys and the girls, and they did horrible things to both sexes, but the girls, they were raped. They were beat. They are told, you are the portal to bring life in, and that means you need to go away, because we can't have your kind here. And the nuns would do horrendous things to those children. Like, my grandmother's knuckles were broken for writing with the left hand, and that meant you were from the devil anyway. But to be a female Indian that wrote with her left hand, oh God, she was a walking demon to them.
Not just that, but she obviously communed with the devil back in those days. That's what
Yeah.
they would say. And they would even excuse rape because they were trying to exorcise the demon from her womb and impregnate her with a non-demon baby and revive her soul and renew her. Fuck, what?
No, you just wanted to fucking hurt somebody. That's all that was.
Like
But
why? If that's the case, then why were boys that were left hand subjugated to the same thing? Not that I'm saying it's right, because that none of it is
no,
right. Let me
no.
get that clear. I don't condone any of this, but if you're gonna do tit for tat, then make sure you don't forget the tat.
Yes, I definitely agree. I'm not saying that horrible things did not happen to the male indigenous children in those churches, because horrible things did happen, but they seem to focus on a different level beyond the women, because the women were the ones that could bring in children.
Yep. That's been their theory always. Most men's theory always is that there's something wrong with women, because how can something bleed for 7 days and not die? And how can somebody go through that kind of level of pain from childbirth and not die? Nobody understands the mysteries of biology and how all that miraculous stuff works, but that doesn't give you a right to cut us up to find out.
Exactly. Let's just get real. If women were to go in and be like, I don't think I understand your anatomy well enough, so I'm just gonna chain you down and open you up a little bit and tell you to stop screaming, because it doesn't hurt that bad. Because I'm curious. Every woman would be watched like they were all gonna kill the men. But we're supposed to walk around and be like, yeah, it happens every day, but I'm sure I'm fine.
And I have an interesting little thought that I have put out there into the universe more than once. I know it's not like mainstream. I know it's still stuff that's kind of hush hush in science, but they have developed nanobots for medical stuff. If you have developed nanobots that can be put inside of a human body and relay data to you, why is anybody having experiments done on them at all? Find people that are willing to be a part of your medical experiments, because there's lots of people that are. Inject them with the nanobots and get the data from inside their body. Once you have it to a point where you know it's going to work and not cause like death or something, injecting people with nanobots, and you're going to get, when people come in, you're just like, do we have permission to inject you with nanobots that will diagnose your body for the rest of your life? And it will give us the reports. And that way we can actually treat what the fuck is going on with you.
Yeah. See, my theory on that is, I think a lot of experiments that have happened in the past and are still happening are less about gaining medical knowledge and more about psychological experiments. How far can I push them? How much pain can they take? It's not really medical. I just want to mess with this person or this group of people because I can. It's some weird power trip.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what it is a power trip that does not end with us having any kind of power.
No, and that's
And
terrifying.
sorry, go ahead.
That's terrifying. Has been for literally centuries. I have this huge piece of paper filled out with all this writing, and it goes centuries and centuries back.
Yep. The violence done to our bodies was never about healing us. It was about controlling us. From the enslaved women of the 1800s to the suffragettes in prison to the ICE detainees just a few years ago, this system has always found a way to make medicine a weapon when it comes to women. When the state controls your body, it controls your future. That's not care, that's domination. We're not saying these things to shock you, although you should be shocked. We're saying them because someone needs to, because these stories deserve to be remembered, repeated, and shouted from every mic. We carry the names of Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy.
Betsy.
We speak for those who never got the chance. We were never meant to survive in a system built on our silence, but we're not silent anymore.
Finally. Finally.
I don't know about you, but I would say that when it comes to women being silent throughout the years, it hasn't always been by choice.
I think it's rarely
And
been by choice.
and if you learn nothing else from this episode, let it be that more often than not, we women are silenced by force, not by choice. We want our voices to be heard. We just know that they rarely are.
Every person deserves autonomy. And for a society to look at somebody and say, you're less than, so I get to do XYZ, is inherently fucked up.
It's what?
It's inherently fucked up.
Yes, it is. And honestly, I'm hoping that everyone that watches this, if you felt something today, rage, heartbreak, a fire in your chest, don't let it stop here. I want you guys out there talking about this. Share the episode. Look into the names. Read the books. That's why I sourced everyone. The sources are going to be in the description box below. Don't worry about that. But, like, check it out. Do the research. Don't take our word for it, but hear the call to action that we are begging, pleading, and calling for. And I don't just mean me and Ashley. I mean women as a whole, worldwide,
all over the world,
nationwide. This isn't just an America problem. We just happen to be talking about it here today. You know, call your lawmakers, advocate for bodily autonomy, reproductive justice, and medical accountability in your community. And most importantly, listen to women. Believe women. Fight for women. Because our silence was never consent, and we will never go quiet again by choice. You know, we are here calling everybody in to hear these topics that we talk about, not because we just think that ours is the end all be all voice on every topic we talk about. We definitely don't.
No.
But what we do talk about here are everyday problems that affect people worldwide. We may address it how it affects us personally and how it affects our community, but we understand that these problems aren't unique to us.
Unfortunately. I almost wish they were. So that would mean there's far less people out there suffering.
Yeah. And, you know, I know that we don't always have our episodes the most organized or the most polished because we aren't the most organized or polished people. We do our best, and oftentimes we're flying by the seat of our pants with a million other things going on, including dinner for the kids and appointments and work and just trying to
chaos was thrown in randomly for the day.
We're just here trying to juggle life. But what we do keep trying to bring to every one of you is a real voice on a real topic. And when you guys message us or comment on our stuff, or for those that follow me on Snapchat, when you message me there, I take those messages into heart and I research the topics. And, you know, not always because you don't see it right away is it that we don't care about it. We probably have a good 2 years worth of topics to talk about. And yet almost every week we end up coming up with a different topic that's more urgent, that's a bigger problem in society that needs to be talked about right now. So, you know, don't think that we aren't listening to you guys too. We're just hoping that our voices, and I speak for myself, I'm pretty sure Ashley feels the same, but I'm going to let her have her words too in a second. But we just really want to reach each and every one of your guys' hearts. And we want to address topics that need changing in the real world, that we also want to help change with our voices and with our actions, not just talking. Like, I'm learning the process it takes to change laws and lobby it in the political range, because my podcast isn't the only way that I can make changes. So, each and every one of us can take a little responsibility and do a little bit our part, even if that's just listening to a woman when she's telling you how bad she's suffering.
I definitely agree. And like Heather said, like, I know for my goal, it is to get information out to people. I want these to be real topics that are relevant to men, women, children, whoever may tune into us. I think the topics that we pick because they are so raw. Even if we're not going through the thing or we haven't experienced, like, we know that it's impacting somebody, so we feel like we should address it and talk to it. So if nothing else, the person tuning in knows that somebody else has some kind of idea of how they're feeling. They've been there. Or maybe it's the resources that we mention that helps you out. Maybe you're just fascinated by certain topics, like this one for me. I have been researching and looking into this topic for over 10 years because it's important and because it's ever evolving. And now I have a little bit of knowledge I can impart on you guys. And one of my goals always is if you guys ever have any more information on a topic that we bring up, let us know. Let's have a discussion. I love to learn. So if you have something I don't know yet, let me hear it. I want to know it. And that comes from a place of love and care for this community and for the world around us.
Yeah. And every time we speak the truth, we reclaim a little bit of that power that's been taken from us.
That's the truth. Because a lot of our power was taken from our forced silence. And now we don't have to be silent no more.
Your pain is real. Listen to it, speak it, share it. If somebody doesn't listen, move on to the next. There's going to be somebody out there like us listening for that small voice that thinks they can't be heard anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. We want to be advocates for you. We want to teach you how to advocate for yourself. Like, it's one of the reasons we tell you to do your own research on all of our shows. Like, we're just two random people on the internet. Like, go do some actual research. Like, that will help you so much, especially if you're going through, like, things on this episode, medical mistreatment, problems with your doctors. Like, go look some stuff up, because there is always a number you can complain about a doctor now. You can always move doctors, and there's always somebody out there willing to listen to you.
Yes, there is. We aren't just the survivors of a broken system. We're the voice that demands it to change. And with that, remember, everybody, rage responsibly. We'll see you next time.
We're also available on Spotify. We said what we said, and we're just getting started. Thanks for listening. Now go rage responsibly. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.